great presentation and took us through the journey very quickly. And great to see how you're getting on in terms of benchmarking with your competition around the world. I'll hand you over now to Kevin Donovan from Roadstone, from letters and post to concrete, and take it away, Kevin.
Okay, Kevin Donovan, Roadstone. Just to show you where Roadstone is part of the CRH group, some of you might be aware of that, and CRH are global. Where we are in the European context under the UN directive, we've locations in 17 countries, we've 36,441 employees with 600 operating locations in the EU. Unfortunately for me, there's an entrepreneurial element that's promoted within CRH. So when I started talking about energy management, they promoted that and they allow us to work locally on standards such as energy management, environmental management. So we had in CRH driving energy management, we were able to do so locally. Where Roadstone is, operating locations throughout Ireland. We have a number of locations throughout Ireland, and that's just the spread. The next slide will give the number of locations, 110 locations nationwide. We've retail shops to around the country, anyone that wants to buy paving. So we've, as I said, 110 locations nationwide. Currently 42 of those are active locations. So those locations are, 42 of those are making products. So they produce construction aggregates, blacktop concrete blocks and agriculture lime. Just to give you an idea of what energy we use, that's primary energy, electrical is 100 gigawatt hours. Internal fuel we use 170 gigawatt hours in our mobile plant, and transport fuel hauling our products it's 100 gigawatt hours. An idea of our savings, and the next few slides will indicate how we made those savings. These savings are percentage against our energy spends. So as you see, we started in 2008, we implemented IS 393 in one location. What happened was I worked within the environmental area of Roadstone, and we were looking at the electrical bills, and we were seeing that there was areas where we could make savings directly on the bills. And at the same time, the SEI Energy Show took place in the RDS. We went to the Energy Show, we met the SEI, and we explained to them our situation being a multi-location company. The SEI met us and discussed with us IS 393 and implementing that standard. The SEI gave us an agreement support manager, and that agreement support manager practically held our hands through the years and is still with us today, rolling out now ISO 50001 amongst our locations. So you can see from the blue line is the projects. We started off at one location. I'll go into more detail in a while how we rolled out the energy management standard through our locations. So we had one location, and then we followed on with a number of locations each year, using workshops to roll out the ISO 50001, IS 393, then EN 16001, ISO 50001 standard. There's initiatives also, savings and initiatives will include, for us, winter peak demand reduction scheme we would have been involved in, which is obsolete now. We're involved in the DSU scheme, and we'd have 16 locations in that by the end of the year. There was also initiatives which would revolve around applying for and receiving from the SEI grants towards our energy projects. And so we can see each year we had savings. As you can see, from 2012, the blue line is dropping, which reflects the projects. The low-lying fruit, we'll say, has been hit. But what we are doing now is centralising the management of our energy system, and we're centralising those projects. And by doing so, we're able to influence more the locations and what they're doing. So we expect from 14 for this year, already information coming through from our locations are showing that projects, the savings attributed to projects is starting to increase. So 2007, 2008, one pilot location. We began with a location in Slane and Mead, one of our quarries. We developed an energy management system for that location under the guidance of our agreement support manager assigned by the SEI, and we started to implement infrastructure to monitor and measure our energy use. From the beginning, we started to look at things such as our base load, what we were doing in non-operational hours. And to do that, we didn't necessarily need the infrastructure around electrical monitoring equipment. However, we had an incomer we could see on that Essentially, we don't operate on a Sunday, so we use the last Sunday of each month to look at our non-operational hours and try and reduce that. So that was the first project we did, and that project continues today. With 2009, 2014, 21 locations. In 2013, we were accredited to ISO 50001 or transport. How that came about is we started to look at our transport. In the slide I showed you where the graph was there, that savings did not include the 100 gigawatt hours associated with the transport. We actually believed at the beginning that it would be very difficult to influence transport. So we left that to one side. We were concentrating on what was in the boundaries of our location. We had our mobile plant with electrical use, and we did not look at the transport. It was only from about 2012 that we started to look at our transport, and in fact now our projects for the most part revolve around transport, which we wouldn't have envisaged in 2012. How we rolled it out most, we started in one location. We tried to put it in as best we can in that location under the direction of our location manager there and the management team. Then what we do is following that, we had 8 locations the following year, and we used workshops. So we brought the location managers to quarterly workshops. What we did is we set benchmarks for those locations to go away, implement certain elements of the standard, working on things such as their projects, putting in their infrastructure, and then to come back and report to us on how they were doing. So the location managers left a workshop knowing that the subsequent workshop that was coming up, they were going to have to present on what they were doing, areas where they thought they could improve, and they were able to influence as well what we were doing around energy management. They were able to go away with the documentation and come back with saying, give us some feedback on what they thought it was, that we could improve the system. So we used that as a kind of a continuous maturity assessment as well. As we were implementing it, because they were there and they had the workshops, they could give us some advice and improve the system themselves. This year we hope to have 24 locations accredited and transport sector. We're using internal seminars. We had one on Friday in Athlone, and we had one yesterday in Tipperary, where all the location managers attended to the seminar and had guidance on where we were improving on our projects and various elements of our standard. What we've done is, at the beginning, the locations were responsible for their own system. So they were responsible for their own projects and implemented their projects, and they gave us feedback through meetings on their projects. Whereas now everyone does the same project. We find we're going to get a lot more from centrally managing the projects. We're operating with visual graphics, that the location managers have visual graphics and representations of the processes, and that's linked into our energy monitoring system, that we can see what's influencing the energy use in the locations. The key buy-in from our locations point of view is when we put in the monitoring equipment, we base that on the monthly reports that the managers do. And the managers invariably spend 2 or 3 days completing these reports at the end of the month. We basically set up an automated system that these reports would be delivered to them through the email using our EFT, our monitoring system that was implemented in our locations. So the projects that we're doing is, again, reduce base load. We find reducing base load, that project is ongoing since the beginning. Since 2008, our location managers have been working on reducing their base load. It's a focus on non-operational hours. It involves all personnel. It involves clerical people, operations people, involves everyone in the locations. It helps develop a culture, and we could use that to develop awareness campaigns. So we found for us the base load, non-operational hours, looking at the beginning, was a great way of getting everybody involved and beginning to change the culture in our locations. One of the other projects that we're doing nationwide this year is compressed air. Just opposite, there's a leak report spreadsheet that the guys do. All they have to do is time at the compressor when it's loading and offload. They type in the figures and it gives them a percentage leaks. They report them to me monthly, and I send out a report consolidating all that information into one report. What we're doing is isolating our compressors, reducing our temperatures, reducing our leaks, and then there's a continuous feedback loop which is sent out so the guys at the locations can see issues that arose around the locations and implement measures similar if they have similar issues in their locations. Again, transport, we have accreditation at the transport department now. What we're trying to do is reduce imported ags. We took 1,500 truck movements off the road last year. This project began in July, August time. It began in a number of pilot locations. Now we're rolling that out to nationwide, each location completing the same project. Each location feedback and information on how much internal aggregates they use as opposed to hauling in external materials. Again, because we're centralising everything, we've centralised dispatch, which we're doing to utilise our fleet. Before a call came into a location, that location could take on the load if they wish. It may not be the most economical thing to do, but of course they're not going to pass it on to another location. With central dispatch, it's utilised. And we've miles per gallon spreadsheets, we've tracking, we've training that evolves around that, and we try to create a report that shows the savings that's happening nationwide. Outside of that, then the guys can pick on projects themselves who normally do one project outside of the centralised project. This is a series of pictures. The first one shows a captive key. The keys are initialed. So we find them, we take them, we know who's left them there, and it didn't take long for people to start remembering to take the keys out, isolating the lights and non-essential equipment around the plant. The next one is the compressed air timers. We have, on our compressed air systems, we have timers. When the guys press the compressed air system on, it stays on for the period of time that's required for that piece of plant or equipment. We have heat recovery from our compressor rooms, where we take heat out of compressor rooms and redistribute it around the plant. And one of my favourite ones is central isolation. But this is a clock machine. And at the clock machine, there's a light above it. And if the light is flashing, something's on. So by pressing the button to the right of the key of the clock machine, you turn off all the equipment. So last the clock out would want to remember to press the button to isolate the equipment, because the manager can check who has last the clock out quite easily the next day if he sees the light flashing when he comes in. So it's a good way of isolating non-essential equipment and planting equipment as the last guy is leaving the site. Centralised management for us is key. We have a number of locations around the country, and we need to drive and progress change as quick as possible. The building structures, we're continuously reviewing and changing that. Demand side reduction, we're working within those schemes, that's revenue into the locations. We've also the STAR scheme in a number of locations. We have an energy performance project as well with the blacktop production, reducing of energy inputs, increased sustainable materials, reducing the CO2 footprint. And we use drawings. Each of our location managers completed drawings of their processes and gave us an itinerary of what made up that process as well, so that we could compare processes and products. We have the units, kilowatt hours per tonne or the litres per tonne. We can go back to the drawings and check what's happening in the drawings and what may be different when you compare processes. By centralising the projects as well, EOS, we use our electricity supplier, and we apply for the credits under the EOS scheme, Energy Efficiency Obligation Scheme, and by consolidating the projects, invariably there'll be a larger project going in when it involves a number of sites. So that's what we do. We consolidate it into one application for each of those. What we're trying to do is work towards green procurement, marketing our products as a greener product. This is for our blacktop. What we do is we use recycled asphalt paving instead of virgin materials, and by doing so we can reduce the CO2 footprint. We've also a number of energy management projects associated with that plant. We have a company that helps us involved in the data capture and analysis, involved in verifying projects and working with us on that. So just some tips for those developing ISO 50001. You need top management commitment, of course. It has to be commitment from the top. You need to develop cross-functional teams across. For us, we have a number of products. We need people involved in each of those products to feed information into us. I'm fortunate, I have 25 location managers. Each of them have ISO 50001 if one or not two locations feeding back information to me. Use SEI supports. They're there. People waiting for the Register of Auditors. There's agreement support managers within the SEI. I have no doubt they'll be on that list, so you can approach them. Engage with the external auditor. We engage quite early with external auditors, and you hope they don't raise type 1 non-conformances, but those type 2s and type 3s non-conformances can help you progress and improve your system. Involve everyone and communicate. For maintaining, again, use SEI supports. Centralised management for me is key. To progress, projects are starting to fall away. For us to make that progress and the line to go upwards, we need to have centralised management. Communicate. Develop strong MMV project plans. Consider PES, EPC and ESCO involvement. Collaboration. I looked at the presentations, and we have a lot in common. And what I find is there's a lot of information out there. If you can just, in this room, there's a lot of information. If we meet and talk to each other, we can all help each other. Collaboration is key. Use internal, external audits to drive change, and change company culture. So to develop an energy management culture with a strategic approach, it's important to get a balance between working with the EMS, staff behaviour and company culture. Progress to best practice in energy management is dependent on company culture, and I find that's key. Without company culture changing, it's very hard to drive change. Thank you.